Good morning and welcome to another episode of Garden to Table with Rose, and I am Rose. So I am finally doing my first backyard tour of the season. It's Friday, May 19th, and I have been working so hard with the front and back that I have not had time to take any video until today. And the yard is still, a little disorganized. It will probably always be because I'm always working on a new project, expanding, adding, changing up something. So I'm gonna start over here in this corner by the gate. Now, I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Zone 6A, and I live in a suburban neighborhood where we have small lots, smallish. So my entire lot is about half an acre, and that includes the house. So I could not tell you how many square feet I've devoted to gardening, but basically in the back, my garden spans the perimeter of the yard. Okay, and I expanded it this season. This is my little storage area with all my mulch and dirt and all that good stuff. Stays over there. Where do I start? Let me go inside this gate. Now, the first thing I did, my son helped me, was move this little fencing out and bring it all the way over here. Maybe you can see this black fencing. It's very short, it's about 3 feet. Before it stopped way down there, where the big field, I call it the big field is. So I bought some more of it. It's easy, it's a no dig, so you just pound it in with a mallet and bought it out. I put down some little landscape fabric here because I want it kind of like a walkway. And I wanted to keep the grass separate from my garden area. I really don't like grass infringing up into my garden beds. It's really hard to get it out. And it seems kind of invasive with the weeds. So I figured this was a good way, at least as long as this fabric stays intact, to keep it at bay. And I'm not planting in here. When I first started my garden, I covered everything with this stuff, with this landscape fabric, which is very thick, very sturdy, but it was very, very difficult to get holes in it to plant. And then from year to year, I would want to plant something different in that spot, and so I would need a different hole or in a little bit of a different place. So that did not work, and I like the look of mulched beds when it comes to the stuff I'm growing. So, but this is nice for traffic, for walkways, for stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I did. Over here I have put a little line of mini arborvitaes. I was trying to create a little privacy hedge over time to hide my mulch and dirt, but the dogs had their way with those, killed off all except for this one that's left on the corner. So I don't think I'm gonna plant any more there because I'm just not gonna do that. I put a lot of my pots on this landscape fabric in containers because it's just a neat setup. It's easier that way. This is a mock orange that I moved from the front because things are getting big up there, and I put it in this pot. It is here temporarily. Most likely I will put it somewhere else in the landscape. I'm just not sure where. So around the perimeter here are my pots and containers. This is a little hydrangea that I got from a start last year. I got probably 12 little starts, and they were inexpensive, of different hydrangeas, and I tell you, only about 2 survived out of the 12. They did not overwinter well. They did fine until the winter came, but in these pots, yeah, they didn't make it. So this is another one of the little hydrangeas that I started last year, which is getting leaves, so it's not dead. This I just got. It's a little maple, bonsai type maple tree, so they grafted it on a stem, and it's so cute. It's like a little pom-pom, and I cannot tell you the name of the variety, but I will look it up and put it on the screen. There are potatoes in this pot. They haven't started to come up yet. Here is my experimental little bed. It's very little, small raised bed, 3 feet wide, maybe 1.5 feet in width. And I have been trying to grow salvia, and I haven't done very well. My seeds just don't germinate most of the time. So I have a few. This was planted full of different salvias, but only, you know, a few are here. And my goal is to put these in the front landscape once they're big. So I was hoping by the end of the season they'd be big enough for me to transplant out front. We will see. These are just something called a 4 o'clock I've never grown, but I got a free pack of seeds. So I planted it. I tried some lavender seeds, but as you can see, I have nothing. More potatoes in this pot. This year I did most all of my vegetables in pots or containers, and I hadn't planned it that way. It just kind of worked out that way. So I was planning to put my warm loving veggies like my tomatoes and peppers in containers, because that's I grew them in containers last year and that was quite successful. They like hot roots, I guess. But I end up putting almost everything in the containers. This is a hydrangea I just got. It's called Zorro. You can see that. But basically, I think it's supposed to have black, almost black stems, and that is why I got it, because it was so unique. You can see that. They are dark. Very dark. So, yeah, that one seems to be doing well. I just put that in the pot not too long ago. This is an Invincible Lace hydrangea that I dug up from the front because I needed more space, and that's going to go somewhere in the landscape eventually. This I thought was so cool. It's a little ginkgo biloba miniature dwarf version. Ginkgo biloba. And I was reading about this plant, and it's like the oldest or one of the oldest plants in existence on the planet. I mean, I couldn't believe it. So it survived for millennia. This here is my lemony lace elderberry bush. That's what it's supposed to be. And I just planted that not too long ago. It's growing. It was smaller. It was like a little tiny pot. I'm going around the perimeter right now. I'm gonna have to go back to the other side in a second. Okay, so my goal here in front of the fence line is to create a hedge of shrubs. My hope is that once the shrubs are big enough, they will kind of shade this grass area, and I can get rid of a lot of this grass, because I have decided I really don't like grass that much. Especially when it comes to trying to have garden beds and plant stuff, and then the grass, it's to me, it's pretty to look at if it's lush, but it really serves not a lot of purpose. So what I'm trying to do is reduce grass in certain areas. I mean, I still need to maintain grass, obviously, in the backyard, because I have 3 huskies, but I'm trying to reduce it and also get it out of areas where it's hard to mow. So away from the fence line, basically, because I want to be able to mow in a straight line for the most part, not really have too many curves or things you got to manipulate around. I did have a little one there that I transplanted. It was in my front window box and it was half dead and it completely died, so it didn't recover, but I'll replace that with something eventually. These are 2 little boxwood shrubs. Winterberry. It was the smallest stick ever. I mean, I'm accustomed to bare roots, but these were extremely small. But as you can see, it has some green buds on it. Hopefully you can see that. So winterberry, you have to plant a pair, apparently, male and female, and so it was a 2-pack. So there's one there. And then the other one, which is growing a lot faster, I can pull this up, is there. And I know there's a lot of grass around it, but as it gets bigger, we'll work on getting rid of the grass. But it's growing, so I'm not gonna complain. I had some dahlia seeds that I sprouted and put in here, so there are 3 of those. It might be a little crowded. I probably should have just put 1, but I put 3 because I didn't know if they were gonna survive. Tomatoes are in here. Honey Delight. That's my favorite tomato, is this, and there's a bunch of little seedlings. I planted those direct from seeds, but because my seedlings, my tomato and pepper seedlings did not transition well outside, which I hardened them off as I do for a couple weeks, and still most of them succumbed, probably because I planted them too early, I guess. Maybe it was still too cool, but anyway, I planted this pot with the Honey Delights because that is my favorite tomato. It's a small cocktail, like a yellow tomato. It's very sweet, and the only place I've seen that variety is at Burpee's. So that's where I ordered the seed. Pansies are in here. Pansies, violas take a long time to germinate. Petunias, in my opinion, from seed. So I did not know that because I hadn't really grown any before. If I had known that, I would have started them a lot earlier because I actually had wanted to use all of these small flowers in my pots and window boxes, but I came up short because yeah, they're just now growing, so I didn't have enough. So that's that. Another one of my little boxwood shrubs, another boxwood, and then here are the hollies. Again, these you need a male and female, I was told, so I have a male and a female here. And then I'm gonna go back to the other side after I do this little perimeter here. My shed. It's a little messy over here. I'm storing pots and stuff that I haven't decided if I'm gonna plant up or what yet. So over here, I had a bunch of tulips that actually returned. There's a pink variety and a red variety, and I cannot remember the name, but I found out that they're one of the ones that's pretty good at returning each year. Most tulips don't, here at least. So the tulips were all here. I've cut those off, and some of the foliage is still here because it hasn't died completely back. But in here, there are a bunch of bulbs. That's all I can tell you. Obviously a bunch of alliums, which I don't know about you, but I love alliums. They're just so pretty, and they last a long time. Look at that. That's as big as my hand. You see that? And this one is a lighter purple. But yeah, and I think I planted some white alliums too, but they last a long time, so I really like them. I have a bunch of them. Even in this dead area over here on the side of the shed, they're growing. I mean, that's another good thing about them. They don't mind rough conditions. So yeah, there's a little hydrangea there. That's a moonrock hydrangea, which I really like. It has strong stems. I have several of those. The stems on those are fantastic, so they stand up. I have several peonies coming up here. Too many here in this spot, and the reason why is because I planted some one year. I thought they were dead because they didn't do anything, and I probably planted them too deep because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I bought some more. I was like, let me plant some new ones because those died. So I had double the amount that I started with. The old ones came up and the new ones now, so too many. But yeah, this one even has a little bud on it, and this is, I don't know, either the first or second year of these. Like I said, it's a mix of 2 years worth over the last 2 years. There's even a red one coming up down here. Peony. There's another one over there. So there's a lot. Oh, my poor little fig trees seem to have died. I did cut them back, and now they seem to be growing. Yeah, it started to leaf out when the warm weather came, and then it just, like, everything shriveled up and died. So I don't know if it got too cold again for them, but these are supposed to be winter hardy ones, because I am in Michigan, zone 6A. So I bought the right kind for my zone, but they are growing some new growth, so I am excited because I love fresh figs, and it's hard to get them here. They're only in season here at the grocery stores for maybe 2 weeks out of a year, it seems. And then I don't know the exact date when they're going to be there, so it's like you just have to kind of check the grocery store every week and hope you get them. So yeah, so I don't get them very often is what I'm saying here. I do have Sweet William that's coming up. Okay, so Sweet William is a biennial, which I didn't know either when I planted it. So again, I planted all this, nothing happened but some green leaves, and I was like, oh, that was a bust. And now here we are, it's all about to flower. The one thing I just found out about biennials is that they flower early in the spring usually, and that's kind of nice because we're at a lull right now, generally speaking. If you're a flower farmer, you know, the tulips and bulbs, daffodils, all that stuff is gone, and nothing is blooming right now. Everything's growing, but nothing's really blooming. So the biennials will start to bloom during this downtime, I call it. So My Sweet William is about to bust open, and I have a wallflower in the front that's huge. I planted 2 plants up there that I totally forgot about, and now it's a humongous fixture. Now it is a biennial, so the problem is those are only going to bloom for you 1 year, and you got to take up space for 2 years to get that. So, but I do like them as an in-between flower, so I'm going to try to figure out a plot where I can just put biennials so that I know that they're not going to flower that year, and I can kind of not worry too much about them and just have them there growing. So I don't know where, but that's what I'm going to do. So lots of lilies that I've planted in this area as well, and you can see, I think you can, wait a minute, I'm trying to find one. Over here would be better. Here we go. Lots of lilies I planted back here. So I was planning to use those for cut flowers as well. Euphorbia. This is a different variety than I have in the front, but it's just as pretty. I love Euphorbia. So I have 2 of those here. There's some mini rose bushes thrown in here, some knockout roses, I believe. I just planted that rosemary. And I'm trying to propagate more rosemary. I love rosemary, so I'm kind of sprinkling it all over the place. This fence line, these are all my Limelight Prime hydrangeas. I planted this whole row last year, so there's 8 of them, and they are looking beautiful. One thing I noticed is that obviously this side gets more sun because of these 2 trees here, and so this side wakes up faster. So what you will see is these will be bigger at this end, and then as you go they get progressively smaller for the most part to the end, where the end one is just now budding actually. Hopefully it's not dead, but I see some little buds on it. I do plan to train this one into a tree form since it doesn't get that much sun, and since it stays, you know, it takes longer over here. So I'm gonna try to prune it into a tree form so that you know, it just rises up a little bit and hopefully gets a little more sun. My fruit trees are doing well. They're all leafed out. I got cherries here. I got pears, apples, plums. What else? Nectarines. Quite a few nectarines. I think all the nectarines are back here. There's one. That might be a nectarine over there, or a plum. I think that's a nectarine. There's a plum next to it, the short one. But everything's leafed out. My dog did attack this one. I don't know what got into him. Like I said, they don't usually bother my trees too much because, as you can see, they're all growing strong. But for whatever reason, he attacked this one, the bark, and it was exposed because he scratched it off. And so I've wrapped it in my tree wrap, breathable tree wrap, to try to just keep anything out of it, like bugs. Hopefully it'll recover, because this tree is lush and beautiful. I believe this is a cherry tree. Let's see. Compact Stella tree. So it's supposed to stay pretty small. Something I've lost, I just planted that, and it looks dead, but the stems are still flexible, so I'm not gonna mess with it. One thing I learned, a lot of things when I transplant them, if I buy plants, they'll lose all their leaves immediately. They just, like, I don't know if it's the shock or the stress of being transplanted, but everything falls off. It looks like it's dead. And I've learned to leave them for another month after you see that. And then if nothing comes back, if the branches are brittle, you know, you can bend the end of the one. If it just snaps, you can scratch the bark. If it's green, it's usually still alive. But I give it a month. So that one might be gone. It was a variegated hydrangea. It's a variegated hydrangea that was just a foliage plant. So no flowers, but just beautiful coloring. And I just thought I'd like to mix shrubs into this area with my trees. This is my pearl bush, which is done blooming, obviously. This blooms on old wood, I read, so I'm not pruning anything really. I'm gonna leave it be. I might come in, and if anything is crossing or anything like that, cut it, but I just transplanted that maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, within the last month, and it seems to be doing okay. Another little arborvitae that I just happen to have laying around. I got 2 pussy willows. This is a black pussy willow because you can use the catkins in the spring when it blooms, these little cotton ball looking things. You can use those in flower arrangements and they're beautiful. So this one is a black pussy willow. You can see that, but the little catkins are black, which is pretty cool. And then I got the white one, of course, the traditional one here. A regular one. And I just picked these up at my local Home Depot. They weren't too expensive. I can't remember how much they were, maybe 30 bucks, somewhere in there. And then a yellow twig dogwood. I had one in the front that died 2 years ago. And so I finally got another one. So again, those branches are something you can use in flower arrangements, bouquets for cutting, you know. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm building a cutting garden, a flower cutting garden. And so I need shrubs, I need things that I can use branches of and leaves for filler, for foliage. And so in between the trees, I am basically filling in with little shrubs as I get them. And my goal again over here is to not really have any grass in this square for the most part. Hopefully the trees, once they get a little bit bigger, will shade a lot of it out. We'll see what happens. Back there is a pile of, I got a pile of grass that I've ripped up from the front. So I'm gonna cover that over the winter, over the whole next year, and hopefully it decomposes the grass and weeds and stuff in there and it'll turn into mulch. That's my goal. I'm gonna cover it with a tarp. We'll see. I've done that before with a pile and it turned into this wonderful compost. It took 2 years, but still. So, but I got to do something with it. I couldn't throw it away. So I had to pile it somewhere because I extended my beds in the front, which we'll talk about in the next tour. This line of arborvitae, only I think one was lost. So, you know, with the dogs, again, it's when anything's sitting out and small like this, it's a risk. They didn't mess with these too much. One I did pull out. I still need to weed back around this one. I skipped that spot, forgot about it. But yeah, so there's even one over there, which I don't know that I need that one over there. I might move that one. But basically, I was trying to create a hedge here too to cover my other storage area. This is where I put my compost bins, wheelbarrows, all the big stuff that has to be stored somewhere. I need it for the garden. And my shed is more of a potting shed. So in my shed, I have, let me open the door. It's not a lot of light in here. So I've tried to film in here before and it was very dark. You literally would have to bring out a light. Basically, I have shelving units here. There's a little table there with my flower cutter that I'm gonna use to process flowers once I get some. And then my little workbench over here with all of my gardening tools, and I have like a storage area up there where I put a lot of my gardening row cover and stuff like that, extra supplies. And then in here I have these solar lights, which actually do work, and they work pretty well. Of course, they come on at night. And I got a little heater in here. Yeah, I got a little heater in here over in that corner that I can use my long extension cord and plug it in over by the deck when I come out and start seeds or something when it's cool, like last month. Yeah, so this is my potting shed storage area, so none of this stuff can go in there. And that's the only area I have. Sedum in these because they're so small that they dry out really, really fast. And like literally I would have to water them twice a day during the warm months. So I put sedum that is drought tolerant. It's doing well on this side, not as well on that side. I don't know why. Maybe it has something to do with the amount of sun. But it seems to be thriving and I don't have to worry about watering it every day and craziness like that. So over there is my raised garden bed. This is the big raised garden bed. This one is 2x6. And I just put a hodgepodge of things in here. I started all of my cold weather liking things early in here. So I got lots of chard and radishes and turnips in here. I haven't harvested much other than arugula and a little bit of lettuce in here. And then on this side, which is covered, I transplanted all the pepper plants that were in my indoor rise garden system and my garden system, my indoor hydroponic systems. I transplanted them out here to see if I could save them. I don't know yet. They're not completely dead. They've lost all their leaves. We will see. But after spending months of them in these units, I just cannot bear to throw them away. So I said I might as well try. I decided to line my deck this year with all of my green stalks. And that's because this is where I plant the stuff that I need quickly, conveniently, like herbs, stuff that I need to come out and grab. So there's everything in here right now. There's tons of different herbs, from mint to different kinds of thyme to basil to dill, cilantro, parsley, chervil, tarragon, French tarragon, so I was lucky enough to find. So there's a little bit of everything. I do a lot of cooking. There's leafy greens in this one, and I couldn't tell you exactly what's in the others, but they're all pretty much vegetables. Yeah, they're all veggies, and so that's where, like I said, I'm growing a lot in containers, which I hadn't planned, but that's what I'm doing this year. All right, so keep it moving. This video is going to be long. I'm trying to start some things here. I took some cutties from the front. I don't know. One looks dead, this one, but the others are still green, and they've been in these pots for maybe 2 weeks. So if they haven't shriveled up in 2 weeks, maybe they're doing good. And then I got some little things here that I planted from seed: petunias, violas, baby's breath, godetia, and one sweet Annie. I must have just not known where I wanted to put it, but some of them are coming up, some of them aren't. And these, it's my little fire table. And these pots, these have paper whites. I have 3 of these. I put paper whites in them because I initially got them. I was going to pot them up inside throughout the winter and decided I didn't want all of those plants inside. I don't really like a lot of plants in the house. I like cut flowers in the house, but things with dirt, I just don't prefer it. So I put them in here. Hopefully they'll bloom, and then I'll just throw those bulbs out because I'm not gonna take them inside, and they're not hardy to my zone. And then I think I threw in a couple of little extra things I had. For example, this has a chive sitting right in the middle of it. I had an extra start. I put it in there. But yeah, I got all kinds of sage, and it's all coming along. All the mint I put at the bottom because it grows like a weed, literally. And you have to put it in containers or it'll take over your whole garden. So different kinds of mint. I got chocolate mint, mojito mint, peppermint, garlic spearmint, lots going on there. And these little planters here, they are all seed geraniums. I got free seeds, and I decided to just do those in these boxes, mostly because they were the first thing that was ready to be planted out, first flower I had that was ready to go. They grow extremely well and fast. At least it's called a border mix, the mix that I had. Yeah, so I'm happy about that. Now obviously you get a mix of colors, so there's pinks and reds, so you can't really, coordinate it too much. You have to kind of just go with whatever comes up, because you're not going to know what color the flower is going to be until it starts to bloom. So yeah, those are filled with the geraniums, easy peasy. Over here. Now, so yeah, most of my design aesthetic is with the dogs in mind and ways to keep them out of my garden areas and to separate them from it. That's basically my goal there with all my design choices. All right, so in these mans are my, I got eggplants in this one. I have tomatoes down in that one. I have pepper seeds in this one. Peppers and a couple of tomatoes are in there. And see, there's another peony there. More of my gooseberries, currants, all of that. Strawberries are in these grow bags. That's where I put all my strawberries, in grow bags, because they create runners like nobody's business, and they try to root and sucker all over the place. They are wild. So I do that to keep them contained. And even so, they still trail down and they'll root into the mulch even. Look at this. If you can see that, I believe that's a gooseberry. One of the two. It's either gooseberry or currant, and this is either a gooseberry or a currant. There are signs. Let's see. Okay, pink champagne. Pink champagne gooseberry. Are these taller ones? One's pink champagne, and then I had a white one. So, and then so this one must be a currant. I'm not seeing the sign. It's so bushy. I know I haven't memorized where each of these shrubs. Primus white currant. That is why I have signs, because I don't know if I will memorize it maybe after a few years. I haven't actually even gotten any berries because I've just planted most of this, so you know it's kind of hard to memorize it if I haven't been able to harvest anything off of it. Yeah, so the strawberries are all flowered. What I do is I add new strawberry plants every year. So I might buy a little 5-pack or 10-pack or whatever, and I'll just put it in spots where maybe a plant died off, like this one. I believe I just added a couple in here. That's how I deal with this situation, because in the grow bags, obviously things die off in the winter here. It gets very cold, and I'm not going to put them in the ground. I might put them in one of those big bins, those Tractor Supply bins, but not in the ground. So they stay in these bags, and for the most part, most of them come back. I mean, like I said, I replace a couple, maybe 3, 4 or 5, and I mean, I have 8 grow bags of strawberries. So, and I like just being able to come and get a handful of something a day or every other day. That's all I need. It's just me, so I don't need big crops of things. I have nothing that I can do with them really. I do get the ever-bearing strawberries so that it's not a one flush. It's a slow and continuous supply. So that seems to work. So annuals are planted here. A couple of salvias that I was able to grow the last go round from seed are in there, getting bigger. Again, I hope I can be able to transplant those out. There's a peony there. There's only 2 that haven't come up, and I really just planted these a couple of months ago. All of these peonies over here. That's one that hasn't come up, and there's one over by the blackberries or raspberries that hasn't come up. Just little seedlings. I can tell that those are cosmos back there. I got my flower netting on most of my flower rows to give support so my things don't flop, because I do want to use them for cut flowers. Another peony there coming up. Here, this is a clematis that I got like at Walmart. I mean, it was like $5 or something. And so again, it was a bare root, but I thought it was dead because it just seemed to wilt even more once I put it in the ground. But lo and behold, there's a sprout coming up, and I just have this here to protect it from the dogs. If they come over, I don't want them to trample it. This is a cup and saucer vine, which I've never grown before, but I planted that from seed. It's an annual, so I'm gonna let it grow up this little tour. And then hyacinth bean seeds I just planted, which is can be used as a filler in cup flower arrangements. So I just planted that like yesterday. So we'll see. Now this thing is tall. It's like 7-8 feet or something. So there's plenty of space there, I think, for these things to climb. Only one of them is a perennial, and this is for the clematis. That's what I was going for ultimately. More peppers and tomatoes over in these bins. I also did squash in these bins. One bin is summer squash, one bin is winter squash. This is obviously the summer squashes. There's more. Winter squash, I don't need so many. So I think I just planted 3. I chose 3 kinds. And then I like them because they store well over the winter. So that's something I can eat when there's no gardening going on. Another row of annuals. There's zinnias in here and some other things. There's a peony in the middle. There's a peony there. There's a sage that comes back every year. Sage is a perennial, most of the kinds, not all of them. The lighter ones are a little bit more questionable. More blueberries in these two. This is a blueberry, that's a blueberry. These things, oh my goodness. Let me tell you, from my experience, raspberries and blackberries like to sucker everywhere. They just want to take over. These things, look how bushy it is. And this is me keeping it trimmed down to about 5 feet because I don't need any more than that. But you can see how lush it is. And that's with me thinning out canes. It suckers everywhere. Everywhere I look, there will be little bitty starts of raspberries sticking up. And I'm constantly pulling them out. But you got to stay on top of it or it'll take over your garden. But the berries are so good. I do want raspberries I want every berry in my garden that I can grow in my zone. So I deal with it. But yeah, there's yellow raspberry plants and then red ones mixed in here. So, and that thing produces definitely. So these are more cosmos. It looks like I threw a chive in there. There's another peony that hasn't come up. There's a peony there. This area I'm just using as a kind of staging area for my seedlings. I took this little cheap cold frame that's falling apart, but it still works. I use this to harden off my seedlings. I bring the tray out. I put the tray in there, and it has an automatic opener on it. So that's responds to how hot it is, I guess. There's some wax or something in it. I don't know how it works, but it lifts up the lid when it starts to get hot. These I just planted seedlings. It's warm enough now outside to have them out here, in my opinion, and then I don't have to hurt them off. There's zinnias here, mostly zinnias, and then all the salvia seeds I had left, I sold them because I'm having a hard time getting anything out of the salvia seeds. So I'm trying to get enough to line my front garden. So we'll see what comes up. The zinnias I should have no problem with, but it's been a week and I see nothing. So just lifting this up, there's resistance here. There's my little seedlings. I did try to root some cuttings I took from the French tarragon, which I don't know if they're gonna make it, and rosemary. I'm gonna keep trying over the season to root those too, because French tarragon is hard to get. Hopefully it's a perennial here, but it's hard to come by. You have to buy the plant. There's no seed or anything for it. Rosemary is not cold hardy here, so I'm having to plant that every year. And then I also have some squash, little extra squash seedlings that I need to plant up in there. What else? The big field. The big field. The big field is neat and nice. It's the one of the few areas that's done for the season anyway. So I got all my flower netting in. This used to be my main vegetable garden, and now I've turned it into a cut flower garden. So here I got some little extra seedlings I had. Looks like there's snapdragons there, but there's some herbs here, some thyme and some oregano. This whole row and part of that row over there is our garlic shallots, French gray shallots actually, that I had to order. So it's supposed to be the real deal. And lots of garlic. Garlic stores well for me. Onions store pretty well. Potatoes, squash, those things over the winter. And so that's why I have so much of it, because I love garlic. I cook with it every day. I cook just about every day. So, it's nice to have those. Let's see, over here. Oh man, I do have a couple of lavender plants that I planted a year or two ago that are in here. That's one. But over here, I think these are mostly seeds. Nigella I put down. Yeah. And then Sweet William. What else is over here? Larkspur. This is a larkspur. There's some strawflower thrown in here a few plants. There's foxglove, this whole section, which foxglove, this is supposed to be one I believe that blooms the first year. I think is what I picked out from Johnny Seeds, but we'll see, because it is a biennial foxglove. And what else is here? And I did plant some things using the Cool Flowers method, which I have the book. I am a fan of the Cool Flowers method, and I will show you why, but a lot of things I planted didn't come up, or I didn't start the starts soon enough where they were big enough for the winter. But it was my first time trying it, and it actually does work. You do get a bigger plant if it survives. It will come to maturity faster. Orlea, which, look at that. Oh, it has some little flowers on it. I'm excited. One of my first flowers of the season. At least I'll have filler. There's a random fennel plant I threw back here. Don't ask me why, but there's a fennel there. I certainly will use it. It's been hard for me to grow fennel, so I'm surprised that one's doing so well. White glitter here, which is supposed to be a filler type deal. More foxglove back here, and then yarrow, which I really didn't need any more of. That stuff is prolific, and it reseeds everywhere. But there's a little bit of yarrow back here. I think I planted way too much of it. I won't be planting any more yarrow. I don't need to. It keeps growing. My shallots. I'm probably going the wrong way. Should probably be going the other way. Dianthus or Sweet William. Lots of Sweet William. That whole section there is Dianthus. I got signs where the signs were made, or where I could. These are lupines, but a random potato has popped up from last year, because last year I grew potatoes in this whole row. So it's one potato plant, I believe. Looks like a potato plant. Verbascum, which I was planning to use as a filler. And again, I've never grown most of these, if not all of these flowers. So I've grown a couple, but I've not grown most of these. So I don't even really know what the finished product is going to look like. I just know what it looks like on the online, that it's recommended for cut flower gardens, and that's what I planted. Poppies. And I'm surprised, because last year I tried to grow poppies. I could not get them to germinate for the life of me. And yet here we are. I think I direct seeded all of this. Possibly. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But that may be, that poppy is in the Cool Flowers book, I believe, because it does like cool weather. Larkspur in here. Again, a random potato, it looks like, unless that's a flower seedling. A couple of random potatoes. Blue Perham is in there. Lisianthus is in here. The starts that I had. There's a little sage plant in there. The Lisianthus, I don't know. It's not doing much. It's been in the ground for a little bit now. There's a big sage plant there. These bachelor buttons, look at this. Okay. Zone 6A, we're only a week and a half past our last frost date. And I have buds that are going to be opening soon. These are bachelor's buttons that I winter sowed. Or I shouldn't say winter sowed, I mean fall sowed. I put them out in the fall at the end of the season, and they overwintered. I did not cover them or do anything. I just let the snow cover them. And look how tall they are. Now this is compared to, let me show you ones that I just planted from starts that I started indoors, you know, however many weeks you're supposed to before your last frost date. There. You see that? Well, let me go over here. Let me show you the difference. Those are ones that I spring planted starts, and those are the ones, bachelor's buttons, that I sowed last fall. So the Cool Flowers method is great for getting bigger, bushier, taller, quicker maturing plants. So yeah, that is the difference between the two bachelor's buttons. snapdragons. Lots of snapdragons. I did pinch these when they were in the tray and rooted the tops that I cut off, and most of them grew. So I have so many snapdragons, more than I had anticipated here, and they seem to be doing well. I got lots of larkspur back here. Go this way. Larkspur, delphiniums all the way in the back. Lupines are in here. Delphiniums, which are supposed to be perennials. And this one has flower buds. Look at that. It's like a dark purple. I'm hoping they get taller over the years, because that's not that tall. That's maybe 18 inches. I like it to be a little bit taller for cutting purposes. More delphiniums back here. And a mix of things that I had that needed to go outside. So I got some celosia back here, mahogany splendor, daisies. What else? Cress. Apple of Peru. Supposed to be some sweet Annie back here somewhere. Statice. Blue Pearl. Blue Pearl. Sweet William. Columbine, which is a very pretty dainty flower. I don't know that I would use the Sweet William and the Columbine in flower bouquets, but for cutting to take in the house would be great. And we're back at the bachelor's buttons. Let's go over here. Orlea. Coriander, which is a good filler. Dill, which is a good filler. And what's this? Coriander. Orlea, Ami, asters. There's a number of asters here, different colors. Stock is here. All of this is stock. It's very tiny. And then a few other things, a few grasses that I thought I'd try out. I don't like the way they're looking. They're supposed to be for filler. Looks like there's a few more statice back here, or cress. Statice or cress. I put all the sunflowers that I planted the first go round along here. This part is empty, but there are a mix here of different sunflowers. There's pearl cuts in here. There's a sunflower Steve. I was able to get some of his, which are hard to get. They sell out really fast. So there are some of those there. I planted them very close together because I want to use them for cut flowers and I don't want them to get super, super tall. So I planted them about 4 inches apart. Now, sunflower Steve recommended 2 inches apart for cutting. So we'll see how these turn out, and then I may shift it. So looking back that way, we've come through this whole long strip. Now over here is where I have my berries in this first row. These are the blackberries here that like to sucker all over the place as well. And then I have like a marionberry and some other things down that way. I think I had a marionberry, a tayberry, and a boysenberry. Grapes, I took out most of the grapes, as I said last year I was going to do. There are eating grapes. I took out all the wine grapes. Basically all the eating grapes are in the back row, and there's one there. So I have white and red, you know, eating grapes, sweet grapes, and some Concords also. I was thinking of making jam or juice or something with them. I put all my dahlias in this row. So as you can see, they're sprouting. The dahlia bulbs, tubers, I planted them all here so that it would be easy to dig them up at the end of the season, because they're not, you can't leave them in the ground over the winter here. So you have to dig them up or buy new ones, and they're pretty pricey, dahlias. So I was able to get several from Walmart. I did not even know they had them, but they did. For they're like $5 a piece there, or $6. And then I got some online as like a bulk mixed pack that was not too expensive, because I wasn't going to spend $20 for one tuber. That's just not going to happen. So that's what I did. And there, most of them are growing. There may be some that haven't come up yet, because I had several, but you know, I'm going to get something out of it. The grapes have the leafing up finally. This is my yellow cherry tree. So I'm very excited about having a yellow cherry. I have not gotten anything from it yet, but it's lush and beautiful. I mean, it's as tall as the fence now, which is as tall as I will let it get. 6 feet is my goal for all my fruit trees so that I can prune them easily and cover them if I have to. This here is a hydrangea. I cannot remember which kind, but I just planted it not too long ago. These 2 pots are potatoes, seed potatoes that I purchased. I transplanted all my asparagus out of the bags into the ground in this row, and lo and behold, most of them took. I did not even think they would survive the winter because they were in little grow bags, and I just set them on the ground here and left them because I had nowhere to put them at the time. I hadn't made up extra spaces yet, and so I was like, well, if I lose them, I lose them, because I didn't have a dedicated space in the ground. But they survived, most of them, and now they're in the ground, and you can see how tall they are. I haven't picked anything off of it because I want them to get stronger roots, so I'm not going to harvest until next year maybe. But just, I have planted purple and green just to kind of let you see what they look like if you let them go, right? So they start off as normal looking asparagus, right? So I could snap that and take it inside and eat it, but I won't. I'll let it continue to grow, and then as they get bigger, they turn into these fern things, and yeah, I assume storing energy for the next year. And they get pretty tall here. I think I need to stake. I think I need to stake that one. Okay. Another row of onions and some herbs up in the front. Or onions, might be garlic mixed in there as well. Like I said, I plant lots of onion and garlic. Leeks are here. I got some celery in there. Under here are my brassicas, because these, oh my God, these things here, between slugs and these cabbage moths, they love eating my leafy greens and brassicas, so I have them covered. There's just, you know, I don't plant big volumes anymore because there's just me, and I wasn't eating all of the stuff. I couldn't eat it if I wanted to. So there's just a couple of cauliflowers, a couple of broccoli in there that I planted when it was still pretty cold, and I'll plant another batch as we get closer to fall. There's some fennel that I have up there growing. There are peas here, sweet peas, and not sweet peas, more like pea pods, sugar snap peas, that kind of thing. And this huge parsley, curly parsley plant is flowering, so I'm probably going to use that for filler if I get any flowers. Look at that. It's very pretty. I didn't intend for it to flower. It comes back. This one is a perennial, so it comes back each year, and it just got tall and leggy quickly. But anywho, so the eating peas I put on this one. So I put sugar snap peas for the most part. And I like to get them when they're pretty immature, because I can eat them raw that way. I mean, they're good in stir fries too once they get bigger. But the eating ones are there, and then the ones I put just for flowers, the flowering peas, were planted under this one. So they're much further behind than the eating ones. And I had one pea pot on there that I got and ate yesterday, and I see one more. But I really like eating these fresh. There we go. There's 2 more. I like eating these fresh out of the garden, definitely. And the flowers are pretty, but sweet pea flowers don't last very long, so I mostly was growing those just for decor. Everything's covered with straw over here to keep weeds down and bugs away, and it seems to help actually. But these are all my cut flower stuff. Annual stuff for the most part. There is a sage in there, but this is like all basil that I have to let get pretty big and hopefully kind of woody, and I'm hoping I can then use that in my cut flower arrangements. More flowers here. This chive, which is all budded up, is so pretty. I do like chives when they flower. I like using them in the landscape. Plus they deter pests. They don't like the smell of onions. But anywho, that's a perennial. It's been there. It's about to bloom. More, I got some eucalyptus that survived. Very little of my eucalyptus that I tried to grow from seed worked out for me. I will not try growing that from seed again. I think I will try to order the plug trays from Farmer Bailey if they have them. I did plant a row of corn because I had an extra row, and I was I didn't have anything planned for it. So I wasn't going to grow corn this year because corn takes up a lot of space, but I had extra rows, so there's a row of corn. This is the last row that has not been planted yet, and this is going to be annuals this summer. So all those seedlings you saw under the thing, I'm going to put them in here. I just have to get to it probably this weekend. And then come fall, this is where I'm going to have my permanent tulip row or bed for my perennial tulips. Like I said, I did find a couple of varieties that are known to be good for perennializing, and they're basic ones, you know, just single tulips and basic kind of colors, but that will be something to have in early spring to put in a bouquet, because there's not a lot of choices in early spring here. So this whole row will become a permanent row of tulips. And then over here, this is my little side shed area. I store things back there, my ladders, more big stuff, fencing, because I have lots of fencing for different projects. Onions, I just filled these pots with onion seeds, because onion seeds, at least in my experience, are only good for like a year. Don't save them for years. They just don't seem to germinate. So all the ones I had, I needed places to put the rest. Some in there, which did a lot better. And then I put some in here. Over here, there's nothing but some rootings I'm trying to make of rosemary.